We have asked external experts that have helped already with the Interreg 4C program to introduce briefly the four themes. Please welcome them on stage. Professor Peter Heydebreck, Philippe de Learde, Robert Williams, and Astrid Severin. Give them a big hand. What will happen now are just very brief introductions, because we really need to save at least 10 minutes to answer some questions from the online audience and from the people here, our participants live here in Bologna. So I would like to ask you to briefly introduce the themes. Please welcome from Inno AG, Professor Peter Heydebreck. You can stay here if you like.
So I will limit myself to providing you with an amuse-gueule for the afternoon workshop. The workshop is really addressing the theme that is approached by Interreg Europe, the basis for a long-term sustainable quality of life and sustainable competitiveness that is not based on low wages and destroying our ecology. So what does it do? Firstly, it helps to stimulate, to boost exchange of experiences and policy learning in the field of further developing the physical and the virtual infrastructure necessary to form a strong basis for innovation. So topics that could be covered within this field could comprise, for instance, the matching between the offer of education at the higher education institutes and the need in business and the public sector. It could provide exchange of experience in the field of defining and implementing new financial instruments like evergreen funds for technology. So form a strong basis, that is the priority 1A. Secondly, it also provides with the momentum of getting ahead, getting one step further. That is, it addresses partners who want to engage in technology transfer. It addresses partners who want to do some pilot action, some first pilot production. And again, in this field, in contrast to what we already had in Interreg 4C, it goes one step further, addressing also explicitly the needs of private business, very much through business associations, through chambers of commerce. What is at least as important as going one step further, of course, is to go into the right direction. And that is also stimulated by Interreg Europe. It is done so by fostering, by supporting the exchange of experiences in the field of increased demand orientation, of fostering clusters, of fostering networks. So it is indeed a very sustainable approach to sustainable innovation policy. Welcome to the workshop this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Professor Peter Heydebreck. And now on the theme of SME competitiveness, I'd like to invite our expert also from Inno AG, Mr. Philippe de Learde.
Yes, so I am responsible for SME competitiveness, and I will try to describe some topics dealing with this matter. So you know, SMEs are very important for economic development. They are quick to react, they are agile, they are creating jobs, but they face some difficulties. And those difficulties, we know, are access to internationalization, access to international markets, looking for finance, having the right and adequate human resources, and dealing with matters like IPI, technology transfer, or innovation. And in addition to that, the world of SMEs is a living world, and some companies disappear and some new ones are creating. And we have to deal also with entrepreneurship. So SME competitiveness is also about entrepreneurship. Many public policies are dealing with SMEs competitiveness. I can only mention at EU level some programs, policies like Horizon 2020 with the SME instrument, a new tool for SME being able to participate only alone. We have also the COSME program with loan and financing. We have also the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneur. You have the key enabling technology, so you have different programs at EU level dealing with SMEs competitiveness. And this afternoon, I suggest we work together on different matters, and I suggest 5 matters, 5 topics. The first one is access to international. We know that for different reasons, and for instance, for the digital evolution, the digital technologies, now SMEs have to compete on international level. And it means that we can discuss about different way to access to international for SMEs. The second point is support to sectors. And we know that SMEs don't like to be alone. They would like to exchange with their colleagues, with their similar companies. And to support sectors, you have different tools. For instance, the cluster policy, or you have also some digital technology support. The third point is access to finance. And we will discuss about seed capital, venture capital, I would say loan and guarantee, but also new tools like crowdfunding or microcredit. And also we will discuss about eco-conception, because we have 2 other topics dealing with low carbon economy, dealing with energy, and companies, SMEs, have to face some new regulation, new norms. They have to adapt their product and their process. So it is really a part of the life of SME to deal with eco-conception. And I don't forget innovation, but innovation is taken in charge by my colleague Peter Debreck and the first group. So we will discuss for sure on innovation, but SME competitiveness will be more on other topics I have tried to describe now. So I invite you to the afternoon meeting and workshops, and we will manage that with my colleague Séverine Ouvry. So welcome to our workshop, and see you, I hope.
Thank you very much. Mr. Philippe de Learde, thank you so much. And now talking about the low carbon economy, a short introduction from Triple E Consulting, our external expert, Robert Williams.
Hi. Yeah, I've got a minute to tell you what the low carbon economy is, which is not an easy task. But it's all about reducing carbon dioxide emissions, and the point of that is it reduces climate change and the future impacts of climate change. But as well as that, it creates employment, it encourages and uses innovation, and it improves competitiveness. So in this context, there's 3 main policy areas to talk about, really, and these are energy efficiency, renewable energy, and sustainable urban transport. So to start with energy efficiency, this is all about using less energy to get the same result. For example, a comfortable building. And not only does that reduce your carbon dioxide emissions, it reduces your energy costs, so it's a good thing to do. And of particular interest in this is reducing energy in energy consumption in buildings, but not reducing the comfort in the buildings. And this is in housing, public buildings, and commercial buildings. And there's several ways to do this. It's about improving the insulation levels in the walls, the windows, using more efficient technology in the heating, the lighting, the provision of hot water. But we can also do it by improving the controls. So we're talking about energy management systems, and also the awareness levels of building users. So it's getting people to turn things off, don't turn them on when they're not needed. So moving on to renewable energy, this is all about producing usable energy from non-fossil sources, which again is obviously good for reducing CO2 emissions, good for climate change. And we can do this by increasing the share in the energy mix of renewable energy sources such as biomass, wind power, photovoltaics, geothermal, ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps. And it's important to remember that renewable energy works at several scales. So at the smallest scale, we're talking about individual houses, individual road signs, individual street lights. Larger scale, we're talking about large buildings. And then the sort of larger scale of interest here is sort of district heating schemes and maybe small power stations. And finally, the third area is sustainable urban transport. And again, this is about reducing CO2 emissions from transport, which is good for climate change. But for most of these things, it's also good for urban air quality. So we can do this via cleaner transport technologies, things like electric vehicles, but also by changing transport behaviour. So this is things like promoting the use of public transport, so it's buses, tram, rail, rather than cars. Integrated transport solutions, so that's getting your park and rides in the right place, in your transport hubs. Also promoting walking and cycling, and trying to shift freight from road to rail and water where that's possible. And just to finish off, I'd like to mention sort of three types of response which are sort of relevant and work in all three of these policy areas. And the first one of these is ICT-based solutions, for example, reducing the need for physical mobility, so it's things like encouraging remote and home working and automated building controls. The second is regional low-carbon strategies, and what these need to do is, for your region, look at what are the most promising things given what you've got in your region, getting the relevant stakeholders involved, increasing awareness, and then facilitating and channeling the sort of public and private investment to get these things started. And there's also some things which regional authorities can do, things like green public procurement, and piloting and channeling investment towards some of the low-carbon technologies and solutions I've talked about. Okay, I hope to see you all in the low-carbon workshop this afternoon. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Robert Williams. And our fourth team, Environment and Resource Efficiency, Astrid Tseverin. We're very happy that you are here from Greenovate Europe.
Thank you very much.
Big hand.
So, ladies and gentlemen, every year 65 billion tons of raw materials are extracted and are entering the economic system. And of course, since Europe is poor in raw materials, it imports most of them. And at the same time, the majority of Europe's waste, which contains a lot of resources, ends up in landfilling or in incineration, whereby we're losing these valuable resources, often after a single short-time use. So let me give you the famous plastic bag example, what I mean by short-time single use. So theoretically, and only theoretically because I'm trying not to use plastic bags, if I go to my Brussels corner shop to buy vegetables and I bring them home in that famous plastic bag, and once at home I put the vegetables in my fridge and I throw the plastic bag away, that will have taken me less than 10 minutes. Having talked to the owner of my Brussels corner shop, he tells me that he uses 4,000 plastic bags every week. So if we're all counting together, that makes almost 200,000 plastic bags, only for my little corner shop in Brussels. So this extensive use of resources and materials, combined with the waste disposal, of course, causes a lot of environmental damage. And as you all know, our resources are finite and the prices are rising, therefore, and it means we have to do something about it. The EU has recognized that fact and says that we need a paradigm shift from a linear economy, which makes, and disposes resources, to a more circular economy where the resources stay in a life cycle for as long as possible. And by the way, this new approach would also create jobs and growth, especially at regional level. So the thematic objective on environment and resource efficiency is addressing these issues through two investment priorities. One of them is to conserve, protect and promote our natural and cultural heritage, and the other one is to support the industrial transition towards a resource-efficient economy. These two investment priorities broadly support all kinds of resources: metals, rare earths, fuels, water, land, soils, ecosystems, you name it. Everything we need and put in this ecosystem every year. And the potential solutions that can be addressed under these investment priorities include the resource-efficient industrial production at product level, eco-design has already been mentioned, at company level, where process efficiency is required, but also at value chain level, which is more complicated, where you need interface efficiency between different companies. It also looks at preservation and sustainable exploitation of natural and cultural heritage, green public procurement, both at public and private level, and finally, at one of the biggest issues that we have in Europe, the waste management that needs to be better and that needs to reverse the waste pyramid, because at the moment, the majority of our waste ends up in landfilling and incineration. We want to inverse that pyramid so that the majority of our waste is avoided, reused, or recycled. So if you want to know more about that subject, please join also at the workshop after lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Astrid Severin, you can take the microphone with you, please. Because we'd like to open up for questions, so the microphone might be passed among our experts. So as said, this afternoon there are these 4 themes, 4 thematic workshops, which will be all about opportunities that the experts see, but also about the chances that you see towards interregional cooperation on those fields. But you see, the themes are quite broad. More on switching workshops later on.